Harris, pastor at Woodburn Baptist Church. It's 10 o'clock. It's time for 10 with Tim. It is a Wednesday, and it's, I think fall is coming. Y'all know I ain't happy about that. I don't like to be cold. I got my long sleeves on today. I'm a summer boy. I just can't help it. Anyway, happy to be with you. Happy to be in the Word of God today. I want to cover a lot today, so let's jump right in. We're in Matthew chapter 22, verses 23 to 46. But yesterday, I didn't really say anything about verses 15 to 22, the whole part about paying taxes for Caesar. This is interesting. Again, I'm back in verse 15 now. This is interesting because it's not just the Pharisees who are coming, to try to trap Jesus with another one of their, mind-bending questions. It's the Pharisees, and if you notice, the Herodians, the supporters of Herod, the New Living Translation calls them. They're called Herodians from the political context of first century Palestine. Herodians for the simple reason that they are the political party that supports Herodian rule in Israel. So more or less, these are pro-Roman fanatics, pro-Roman political party, and they've sort of teamed up with the Pharisees here. It's kind of interesting. They're not exactly political allies. The Pharisees, politically speaking, they don't like Rome, and they don't like Rome's occupation of Palestine. They don't like that at all. But I guess you call them quietists. They don't say anything about it as long as Rome leaves them alone. And that's kind of why they're always worried about Jesus. It is for religious reasons. They do have hard hearts and all of that, but it's also just politically. They don't want anything to happen that would cause Rome to tighten the grips on their homeland. They despise Rome, but right now, Israel, has this special arrangement with the Roman Empire where they get to continue worshiping in the temple, that they haven't had to adopt all of the Roman gods and pantheon of divinity. So does that make sense? So you got the Pharisees and the Herodians in here. They come together. They've asked Jesus a political question. And again, the idea is to trap him. They want Jesus to say something that they can put on CNN, or Twitter and cause people to turn against him. And this is a pretty good one. Again, it's not so much that everybody loves politics. It's just that, Jerusalem especially, but Palestine in general in Jesus's day is just this ticking time bomb because the people hate Rome. They despise, being occupied by a foreign, conquering power. They want them out. They want their freedom. They want their autonomy, and they despise Caesar. So this is really, really, sort of a ticking time bomb, and they've asked Jesus to step in it. And their idea is, once he steps in it, he'll never get that smell off of his shoe, and the people will turn against him. So that's their plan. So the question is, teacher, we know how very honest you are. You teach the way of God truthfully. You're impartial. You don't play favorites. So tell us, is it legal? What's the Bible say? Again, it's a political question, but they phrase it like it's going to be a religious question. And it is, because everything somehow goes back to God and his, sovereignty over us. But again, it's a sticky political question, and that's how it's a trap. So, is it lawful to pay taxes? What do you think about paying taxes? Jesus just simply says, you hypocrites. Again, he goes for their hypocrisy. Why are you trying to trap me? Give me a coin. You see, you can only pay Roman taxes with Roman coinage, right? And so he says, give me a coin. Now, the Roman coins are hated also in Palestine because they literally are offensive in breaking the 10 Commandments. This is no graven images, right? But a Roman coin has a picture of Caesar on the front and, a picture of Caesar on the back. Heads and tails. It's a graven image. However, the Pharisees are more than happy, to use those coins, down at Target. They use it for business. They use it. So that's the hypocrisy. You act like you're all against this, but you're more than happy to use this money, when it's good for you. So Jesus says, hand me a coin. He looks at it and he says, whose face is that, right? Whose picture's on it? That's Caesar's picture. Jesus says simply, well, then give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but give to God what belongs to God. You see, it's not necessarily drawing a line between the political and the spiritual realm. Some people read it that way, but Jesus isn't really saying that, because when he says give to God what belongs to God, understand God is sovereign. God is above everything. So once you give to God what belongs to God, Caesar at that point doesn't have a whole lot to claim for his own. You see, so let's keep going. After that, the Sadducees show up. Like we needed another group to show up to give Jesus a hard time. But here come the Sadducees asking a question about resurrection. Why their sudden interest in resurrection? Because the Sadducees don't believe in resurrection. When they believe when you're dead, you're dead. I mean, they do. They do not believe in the resurrection. So understand, their question really isn't a question about, resurrection. Their question is intended to sort of display how absurd the idea of resurrection is. How complicated and crazy resurrection is. So they come up with this, fictitious example where you got this poor girl who gets married to this man who doesn't manage to give her a son. And so, by Levitical law, his brother should then the brother of her husband should then, marry her and try to give her a son. But let's say that, he can't do it either. So let's say she ends up, marrying like 7 brothers. Well, when she dies and gets to heaven, whose wife is she going to be? Again, they don't believe in resurrection. They just want to show Jesus, that they want to trip Jesus up by giving him an example where the resurrection just seems impossibly foolish, right? Now, Jesus goes on to turn their argument against them and demonstrate the biblical rationale for, one of the biblical rationales for resurrection. It's really simply back when God says, I am the God of Abraham, not I was the God, I am the God. So from God's perspective, these people that are dead in terms of earthly existence, they are alive to God. So resurrection is this demonstration of God's power over death, but also his covenant love. Not even death cancels God's relationship of love with you. You understand? It continues into the life to come. Okay, so Jesus uses it to demonstrate the truth, biblical truth of resurrection. But what he says about marriage is hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me because I love my wife. Now, the marriage vows we took were plainly spoken till death do us part. So I understand that. At the same time, was it Alan Jackson sings, I'm going to walk all over heaven with you? I mean, most of us still have this idea that in heaven we're reunited. And you are. You are. Now, when Jesus says in heaven, it's not like this. We're not married or given in marriage. So in that sense, it's not just a continuation of earthly existence, and it's not just a continuation of relationships as we've always known them. But can I just tell you, if it's not the same as marriage here on earth, that only means it's going to be something better. God is never going to give you something better on earth and then give you some lame, pale, replacement in heaven. So whatever this means, it does not mean when you get to heaven with your husband and you're walking all over heaven with him, he won't even know who you are, or he's going to be like a stranger, or you're going to be married to somebody you never, it's not going to be less than your life on earth. Heaven is always infinitely greater. So do not let this passage discourage you, and don't let it make you think that God somehow is going to, do the old switcheroo and heaven's going to be a dud. Heaven's not going to be a dud. You may walk all over heaven, with your spouse, but it's going to be at a plane of relationship higher, greater, and so much infinitely better that you wouldn't even be able to compare it, to the two of you, going to Denny's after 5, and eating pancakes. Whatever you've enjoyed on earth, heaven is better, infinitely better. Can I say that in a different, better way? Heaven is better. Never, ever, never begin to give into the temptation of thinking that heaven somehow is going to be a disappointment. Okay? Quickly, let me go on. Pharisees then, silence the Sadducees, and Pharisees come back in with a new question. What's the greatest commandment, right? What's the greatest commandment? Jesus puts 2 commandments together. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. I love that. You have to love the Lord your God with all your mind. You have to surrender your thoughts to him. You have to think passionately. So many of us are so lazy-brained, you know. But loving God with your mind is an important part of faithfulness to him. The first is the first and then the greatest commandment. It follows it. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then one last trap. Pharisees say, okay, well, whose son is the Messiah? You know, whose son is the Messiah? Again, in the Gospel of Matthew, we've seen the idea that Jesus is the son of David has been very important. The Messiah is in the Davidic, line of David, the lineage of King David. But Matthew here, and of course Jesus wants to emphasize that, while that's true, the true existence of the Messiah is much greater than just being like David's great grandson. He's not just another heroic king. He's not just another great military commander. He's son of David, but he is son of God. And son of God is the greater, higher, most important title. Do you see that? Since David called the Messiah my Lord, he must be one greater than David. You see that? I love that. Tomorrow we'll pick up right there, chapter 23. Next couple of days, I want to ask you to read some big chunks, okay? So tomorrow, read all of chapter 23, verses 1 to 39. Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 to 39, and we're going to pick up from there. I love you guys. It's Wednesday. I pray that you have a good day. Stay out of the rain. And enjoy all the good gifts God has given you. Is he not so good? One of the greatest gifts is Scripture itself. So stay in the Word and stay with me, and I'll see you